people have just so much self-doubt
Yeah.
and they're like, I'm not sure I can do this. I don't think I can do this. And they're just kind of like we talked about in the previous podcast, that negative feedback loop, just like feeding into it. And then it's like, no, you can. No, you can jump on that box. Yes, you can pick up that weight without hurting your back. Yes, you can squat that weight to full depth while, executing like perfect bar path and all those things.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Real Training Better Living podcast. I am your host, Tommy. I got my co-host here, Chris. And today the topic of discussion is going to be coaching development and coaching careers at District H. And this may sound like it doesn't necessarily apply to members or potential future members, but I think what you guys will appreciate about this is the team of people we've built to really kind of lead you day in and day out. Because I think all of us have been doing this for a while where maybe you are going to be able to understand some of the themes I'm going to unpack and maybe understand why some of the decisions that I've made in the past, kind of like why we landed here. I personally am super passionate about this because I come from a corporate background. So like I've had really good leaders, CEOs invest in me, and I know the change it can make for an organization when it's done right. And when you have a really good team, I'm sure you've been, Chris, have been on amazing teams in your past. And it's amazing when it's like, hey, we're all performing at our best and we're all like rowing in the same direction. What cool stuff you can kind of go build. So the way we think about this at District H is when I think about coaching development, it comes from a place of like, is the initial why behind why you want to coach there? And that can look different for different people, but at District H, it's really about being passionate about guiding people from point A to point B, whatever that means for them in their life at that point. That can mean, hey, point A is I'm in pain. Point B is I'm no longer in pain. Point A is I am in the top 5% in performance. I want to get to the top 1% performance, right? That could look at, but you just love that process of understanding, prescribing, refining, asking the questions all over again, right? Why did you get into coaching, Chris? Like initially, like why does the profession of coaching speak to you?
I think it was just started with I felt like I could do a really good job in that environment. And I have always found that like replicating something that I saw that was done well is kind of just something that's like, it was fun to do. And then once I saw like, oh, it's not only fun to coach people, but understand the why and like see progression and everything like that. That was kind of the next step. And then started doing some programming and kind of took off from there. But it was, I guess that first why is just like, I feel like I could be really good at that. Yeah.
The International Coaching Federation defines coaching as partnering with clients to maximize their personal and professional potential. So it's kind of like that place of like, hey, you have this ability and I want to help foster that and get you to where you're trying to get to. OPEX, which is probably one of the leading outside of Active Life, one of the leading organizations in professional coaching, personalized and empowering clients to become autonomous in their fitness journey. So really kind of like being seen as that guide of like, hey, like I'm here to not only get you to your goals, but give you the information, education, and experience to take care of yourself, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's ultimately why we're here, right? Is ultimately to say, hey, like I'm not only here just to like make sure you get to your initial goal, but how do I empower you to kind of like take full control over this where you no longer need me? Right? Want not need relationship. Mm-hmm. What's your most successful story from coaching? What comes to mind?
It always
proudest moment.
Yeah, it always comes back to Denise.
Okay.
And she was a client I had in New Jersey. So Denise, you're the reason, because she was just working with another coach that they did not have a good a good relationship. Essentially, they did not vibe together.
Yeah.
There was not like I don't even want to say there was like any mutual respect really. It was just like, they just did not really like each other either. And then, my gym owner at the time, Steve, he was like, Chris, I think you're going to do really well with her. Just give it a shot. And I was like, and Alyssa was like, Chris, this is what you do. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot, and started working with her. And I was just like chipping away at a block of iron with like a blunt, like a rubber hammer. I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to crack this. And then someone finally gave me like an actual chisel. And, it was just so fun to like kind of peel back her layers and get to her like deep reasons why. And then I found out that she was not happy with her health and COVID had done a number on her, and her son had bought her these PT sessions. So I was like, she obviously respects her son's time She respects him putting this financial commitment into her, and she respects herself enough to like want to keep pursuing this even after a bad first experience. And once we started like just really meshing and kind of meeting each other in the middle and being like, hey, we're going to do this together. And she then started running with the programming and prescriptions I was giving her. It was just such a night and day difference where I give her like 106-pound kettlebell. We're like, we're going to deadlift this today, Denise. And she's like, I'll try. And it was just like, I'll try always, always without fail. And she's just like probably my most proud client, like still to date.
Why do you feel like we get so much joy out of helping people see more in themselves than they see more than they see in themselves? Like, why do you find so much joy in that process?
I think it's mostly because people have just so much self-doubt and they're like, I'm not sure I can do this. I don't think I can do this. And they're just kind of like we talked about in the previous podcast, that negative feedback loop, just like feeding into it. And then it's like, no, you can. No, you can jump on that box. Yes, you can pick up that weight without hurting your back. Yes, you can squat that weight to full depth while, executing like perfect bar path and all those things. And I have always loved proving people wrong.
Yeah.
And I feel like I need someone to doubt me, like, because I haven't had anybody doubt me in a while, but it's just getting the doubt is the object or the task in front of them and what they think about with their own self-talk. And that's why I like doing it.
And isn't it amazing how like you get more and more of those reps underneath your belt with somebody, and then all of a sudden you've put them on like a completely different life trajectory? Not to say like we're trying to be life coaches, but to your point, we're just helping them build confidence in themselves that you can do more than what you think you're capable of. And it's amazing once you kind of reach this, you kind of like get over this threshold with them, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I can go conquer the world. And it's cool to see them go give their God-given talents to the world at full capacity, or like full send on these people, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think that's where the joy comes from. I always tell, like, with our vision and mission, it's like we impact the world by impacting the people who inhabit it. Best way for us to do that is just to help build confidence and say, hey, you can go do whatever the hell you want to do in this world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the hierarchy of professionals in fitness. So a tier structure that I think about when it comes to like, okay, if I am developing a coach and I want to invest in them, where are they at and what tools do they need to get to the next level? So I'm going to go through these tiers real quick and then we'll unpack it. So tier 1, presenter. You're simply presenting what is in front of you, right? Like that's it. You just get good about like speaking in front of people, which believe it or not, you'd be surprised how many people it stresses them out. They're like, yeah, I can't do what you do. I'm like, oh, we're just, guys, all right, 30-minute EMOM, like blah, blah, blah. Off we go. Tier 2, you actually have the instructor. So this person's bringing intention to what it is that they're presenting. So they're like kind of guiding you through like, all right, guys, stimulus for today. This is what we're trying to get out of it. I'm not just saying words. I'm like relaying it back to like, here's how I want you to apply this information, right? Tier 3, we actually get into a trainer. So now you're customizing. You can say, okay, guys, here's the information. Here's how I want you to apply it. But you over here, because what I know about you, this is the modification I want you to make. You're getting a little bit more skilled with like applying the information, right? Then you have the coach, you have the guide. Now you get into more of like asking questions like, okay, well, how do you feel about that weight today? You talk about Gus, right? Like Gus, like, what do you think is the right number on that bar, right? Like that's where you're actually teaching and learning and helping them become more aware and taking ownership over their workouts. And last, you have the actual mentor, which is like that long-term support of like, I'm not only coaching you in this season of life, I'm going to be coaching you throughout your life. Those are kind of the big stages. So let's talk about typical group fitness and the skill set that's necessary to be successful in that environment, and maybe why at District H we're a little bit different. So like when you think of group fitness, what are the concepts that come to mind? Don't even think about just like CrossFit or what we do. Like what's group fitness? Or what comes to mind?
Orange Theory is a good one,
right?
Like a kind of a classic, I think, or like a Rumble Boxing or Barry's Boot Camp, where you have a presenter or trainer up at the front and they're guiding you through the workout. It's like, oh, I've never done Orange Theory, but I think they have like the chest monitors to monitor your heart rate. And they're like, hey, we should be at this heart rate or this zone, whatever the kind of theme for that day is, whether it's on the bike or running, etc.
Yeah.
And that's how they kind of proceed through that. Or it's like, oh, we're going to do jab cross hook or whatever it is.
So like based on that environment, what types of professionals would be highly successful in that environment? Like what is it that people are actually paying for, and what's the skill set that the professional can bring that matches those people in terms of what they want?
So I think in those environments, people want someone to just tell them what to do, give them the information. It's like, hey, this is what we're doing now. Hey, this is what we're doing now. And the trainer is just there to bring energy, show them what they're going to do. And there isn't, I don't want to say there's no intention. I feel like that's not the right the right phrasing for this, but it's very unpersonalized because it's like a 1-on-30, and it's just like, hey, we're all gonna go do this now and just follow along, essentially, or listen to what the words coming out of my mouth.
And what I would imagine means a lot to that consumer is having a great experience. Just I wouldn't say it's a great workout, but I got a workout. I'm sweating. I'm feeling good. And this person brought a lot of good vibes and energy my way. And like, that's all I'm here for. Right. In terms of what we do now, let's transition to District H, right? In terms of like, okay, now we're bringing in where technical, like technique around movement is incredibly important, because we are talking about strength training. Like, we can't just have high energy with heavy barbells, right? Like, I want energy, but like, guys, like, let's do it the right way. Right. Where does that skill set from the professional, why doesn't it meet that requirement well? Where do you think the breakdown is?
Well, instead of like running, there's a lot of technical aspects to running, sprinting, et cetera. There's multiple different kind of modes of like how that occurs, but everybody has a different gait. But kind of taking that to the context of District H and barbell back squats, everybody has a different setup with how their back squat, whether it's a high bar, low bar, mid bar, how their feet are splayed out, how their toes are pointing out or in, or whatever it is. So now you're really diving into like how this person's like anatomy simply makes them function. So you have to be much more flexible. It's not like, hey, Frank, your right foot's a little bit far in front compared to your left foot. You should like even it out. It's like, well, maybe Frank has like either an injury or a like hip displacement issue, or that's just like makes him feel comfortable, and moving him to like a toes in line position just causes him a lot of pain. So you have to be much more like flexible with those cues and just accepting that there's going to be deviations while keeping someone as safe as possible.
Yeah. And I think like where the world of CrossFit got it really, really right was they really do, like, if you go take some of their courses, not to say like that's like all you have to do, but they do a really good job of like taking the technical and bringing it into like, okay, now apply this information in real life. Like, how do we bring these two worlds together? Because like you either get, here's some pretty watered down expertise, like in terms of like personal training certifications and not any real application, or you get like similar with like even like the CSCS, which is the gold standard in strength and conditioning, is like, here's a lot of really technical stuff, like how to build a weight room and all this exercise phys. Not so much of the practical of like, here's how to teach this and actually implement it in a group setting kind of thing. Like, that just comes with reps.
Yeah.
I think you would agree that like you and I probably learn the most by doing. Like, we just years and hours and like just watching a lot of people move.
Definitely. Yeah. It kind of goes into like something in the military with like, when I was a corpsman, is the see one, do one, teach one mentality, where it's like, okay, we're going to do an ingrown toenail removal and we're going to watch someone do it, and then we're going to do it ourselves, and then we're going to teach it, and just layering those things kind of the same way, where it's like, oh, we're presenting. We're just going to like read what the workout is, and then we're going to be like, here's the workout and the intended stimulus. And now you're going to go through the next layer.
Yeah.
And you just this is one of those very practical application kind of careers where it's like you need to get the reps in. Otherwise you're just going to be like, it's all theory, and theory only gets you so far.
Why do you think it's super important that I need my coaches to get beyond the presenter, instructor, trainer, and get actually into like the technical, the cue, the nuance of coaching? Why is that important in what we do you think?
We have a very just varied population in terms of like just ability levels. You know, someone might, again, like Christy Kyle, she has that meniscus tear that's just like kind of, you know, it's just there, you know, she doesn't need to get it repaired. And she operates, she knows her limits, and I know what she's kind of capable of. And then you have someone like Ankur, who has like some of the most insane mobility I've ever seen from a male in my life. And he's operating just on a different playing field. And it's like, you're gonna have to taper things or tailor things to make it harder, easier, or kind of work within what their capacity for the day is.
So what it sounds like is like, and I agree with this, is what you're saying is, in order for clients to see the best results in our gym based on what we believe is the best way to get strong and healthy and build endurance and all those things, it's like, that's the skill that's required. You have to be able to make those adjustments so that person gets what they need out of that day. It can't just be this like 1-on-30 cookie cutter, guys. Everyone's going to do the same thing, and I'm going to cheerlead the heck out of you. And there's value in that in certain concepts, but I think what we do, because there is a sense of high risk in what we do, there does need to be this element of more technical expertise when it comes to coaching. Yeah,
it goes back to like kind of being flexible, and one size doesn't fit all. So 100% agree.
The other thing I wanted to talk to you about was like, so to unpack that last part, guys, is kind of like when we're developing people, I'm okay taking the presenter, instructor, trainer and really developing the more technical and what they need. And a lot of that is like, maybe that I got to broaden your education. Maybe some of that is like, you just need experience watching a lot of people move. That's totally fine. But for any coaches that are looking to work at District H, know that that is going to be the skill that's required of you in order to be successful in my environment. It can't just be happy faces and cheerleading. And like, that's just not going to work, you guys, because ultimately the client's not going to get what they want, which is, to me, is like, that's the worst thing. Is like, you guys entrust us with your health. And if we can't deliver on that, then, what are we doing? Right. Next thing I wanted to talk to you about is the biopsychosocial model to coaching. Super important. Bio guys, technical, cueing, exercise phys, protein synthesis, like hypertrophy, whatever. The psycho side, the more of the understanding of the why behind it, right? And everyone's different in terms of like why they walk into our gym and what their why is. And it's fun to unpack that, like break through that marble, right? And then there's the social aspect of like, you won't listen to a word I say unless you kind of like me and trust me, right? Like that's the social part. When we think about prioritizing what skill set's most important, I think first and foremost is the social. You have to have trust and buy-in from your people. Did that come naturally to you like early in your coaching career? Like you're like, hey, I kind of know I can't be a dick if I want people to listen to me, or were you a dick and you're like, okay, this isn't working?
No, it's well, I had a fairly established like relationship with everybody in that gym because I had been going there prior to joining the Navy, and I would pop in because it was literally like 5 minutes down the road from my parents. So people knew my face. They knew my brothers because it was like literally a Diomede, almost like legacy of like to go through that gym at some point.
Yeah.
Not in a coaching aspect, but to like be there. People knew our family. And so there's already kind of a mutual respect. And I was never like, I never could be a dick. And that's also something that Steve, it was like his mantra is like, don't be a dick. And I was like, okay, you got it. So it's kind of just like layered itself easily for me. And because of that, like the trust was already there. And once I got my level 2 with CrossFit, I really was like, okay, now I like understand way more of like what I'm actually trying to impart on people. And then once they saw like, that really was very beneficial for Chris, I should listen to him. And it completely changed how I went about like how I coach in general.
Yeah.
And I've just seen nothing but like more positive output from myself as a result.
Kind of goes back to that old saying of like, people aren't going to care. They're going to care more about how you made them feel versus like, what so to speak. Right. So like I've had a lot of different coaches come through District H where they knew a lot, but because they had a tough time connecting or they didn't want to, or they're kind of like, they weren't willing to go the extra step to build that trust. That knowledge was never appropriately conveyed and imparted on people because they weren't willing to listen because they didn't trust you. So like to my current coaching staff, anyone who wants to work for me, I'm like, guys, like I do appreciate people who have a lot of knowledge, but learning how to connect with people and be a good person and understand that it's not about you. What can you do to serve that person? Like that trust is so important. That's the foundation for which everything else is built. They're not going to care until they know how much you care. Right.
Definitely.
Let's talk about the psycho side. This is where psycho side, that sounds weird. The psychology side of this. This is an interesting one because I think a lot of times in moments of frustration, it's very easy for you to project onto your clients. You assume you know why they're there. You assume you know what's bothering them. You assume you know why they're not listening to you. You assume all these things, right? When you think of the psycho and some of the cool, like I actually learned the underlying reasons behind all this. What are some of the things that come to mind? You can keep it anonymous, but like, what are some of the examples you've come across?
People quitting jobs. Like I think in the last, it's April, it's almost May. It's been almost like 5 months. And I think like 3 or 4 people are like, I quit my job and I'm starting something new, or it's like, I'm just kind of like waiting to go back to work or whatever. Yeah. And I thought someone was like really upset or just kind of a little off. And then I was like, hey, how you doing? And they're like, oh, well, and I asked them, I was like, why, you don't typically come to this time. It's like, oh yeah, I quit my job. I was like, congratulations, ? And they're like, yeah, it's good. I'm a lot less stressed out now. So it's just, it is pretty interesting to like hear some of those things from people, and just kind of like see where it like takes them with how they're approaching like their fitness journey.
And it's funny how like it's super easy to assume you think you know why people are coming into your gym. And what you don't realize is like everyone's going through stuff, and it's it'd be the easy thing for me to judge and project like, oh, like they're unhappy with me. They don't like my music selection, whatever it is. But most of the time it has nothing to do with me. Of course it has nothing. Yeah, it's all about me. No, they're just like
Yeah.
everybody, like they're just dealing with stuff. And yeah, maybe that day they're just happy they showed up and that's okay.
Yeah.
Right.
You and I did talk about this maybe like a month ago, but it's not about us as the trainer. It's like literally whatever. Like I always tell people, they're like, "Hey, Chris, what's the hardest part of your job?" And I was like, picking a music station, because it's like if you don't like how I coach, like, and I think most people at district H like how I coach, but if you don't like how I coach, I'm sorry. Maybe not really. But it's. But not everybody's going to like how you present something to them. Sure. And it's like, not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to like the programming. Not everybody's going to be like your best friend. And you just have to accept that. Like, it's okay. You don't have to be, everybody's like go-to guy. It's just like, you're not meant to be that person. So
as long as it's coming from a place of like, hey, like if you ask something of me, I'm going to give you my best effort, but I understand if I'm not your favorite person.
Yeah.
Totally fine. Let's talk about like, this is the more boring part, but like on top of that, guys, so building relationships, connection, going a layer deeper, understanding your purpose for why you want to train at our gym so we can speak to that more directly. Then you get into like the bio side, which I think people kind of obsess over a little too much, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to be at a 45-degree angle to get active lat activation when you're doing, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
People get a little obsessed about it. Not to say it's not important, but I think like all of that knowledge base of how to coach someone through movement or health, it really doesn't mean anything unless those foundational elements are there. But I do think that as a staff, we have to continue to develop that arsenal and that tool set of skills. Like what's for the last 12 months, want to bring in listeners of like, what tools have you been adding to your toolbox to make you more effective?
So I've been in the Active Life program. So it's just like, incorporating movement patterns of like daily life. And that's something I've been doing a lot more because everybody, we're always trying to like squat with optimal bar path or deadlift with optimal bar path and like keep our spine engaged and like spine stacked, etc.
Yeah.
And that's not just how we function on a daily, a daily living scenario. So a lot more twisting, a lot more like throwing of objects, because someone in the Navy that I served with, he came in and he was like, "Doc, I don't know what I did to my back. I was like kneeling down by my truck and I pivoted slightly to the right and I literally can't stand up straight now." And I'm like carrying him back to an exam room. And, he's a pretty fit guy, but it's like the most innocuous movement possible, put him on his ass. And, it's just like, let's incorporate more of those like uncomfortable, practical movement positions. Cause we just can't operate in pure anatomical, like perfect range of motion all the time.
Yeah.
That's what I like doing.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. And again, so like for us, Christy and I have really been delving deep into how do we create this framework and process from taking a coach from, I love helping people get from A to B to developing these very foundational elements of like, how do you connect with people and build trust? How do you understand their why? How do we develop the technical expertise to make you more effective in cueing and correcting and having people get better workouts, right? And then we could take it a layer beyond that and get into like health coaching and all that stuff. Let's talk about sustainable career growth for professionals in this industry. I know in episode 1, you had mentioned like, aside from working in the food industry or service industry, like there's just not a lot of room or opportunity. I don't know why I started to obsess over this, but like, I just didn't want to take that as fact. And I'm like, how do I create a system where that can exist? And so like when I think about professional coaches, where this is your craft, this is your art, this is what you should be paid, competitively for. I was inspired a lot by what OPEX and Active Life were putting out in terms of like, this is how you can structure things to create careers for people. And I know you had already spoken to it in a previous episode, but like, do you want to speak to just why do you believe in the profession of coaching? Like where, like in your mind, where should that sit in the healthcare industry, so to speak?
Well, I think it's a near cousin. It's like a parallel, like fitness and healthcare. They're not going to be a 1-to-1 ratio. It's like they're like sitting this far apart, and it's just kind of like we as fitness professionals need to be able to bridge the gap. And specifically, I think Active Life professionals will probably be like more more equipped. And that's not to say that other trainers are not, because
Right.
like Kelsey Constant, she like has a ton of credentials and she's really helping people, and she's not an active life professional.
Christy has her master's in athletic training.
Yeah.
Like she has a ton of experience.
So there's a lot of those people out there that are very willing and able and, active participants in trying to get people, bridging that gap. And it's just a matter of like getting reps, having the right person to kind of push you in those directions, give you those clients, and also you putting in the effort to gain the aptitude to take those clients on ethically.
And I think like realistically in our system, right, it's kind of like the hierarchy for progression as a professional is, right, you can work in brick and mortar. Maybe if you want to stay as a technician, you can like start to build your own book of business where you have your own clients, kind of like what Kelsey is doing and kind of like what a lot of active life practitioners do. You can stay in a brick and mortar and become like head coach, GM, all that stuff. You can become an entrepreneur and go create your own business and go do all that. A couple different pathways you could take and get into corporate wellness if you want to. Like there's a lot of cool stuff, but like I think there is a need for professionals playing on the offensive side of helping people stay healthy versus the medical professionals, which are on the defensive side of like, hey, how do we, you're already sick. How do I not make you more sick? And us are like, how do we just not get you sick in the first place?
Yeah. No, it's, I think the preventative has always been something I've been like very passionate about, and I use passionate very like carefully, but I think that it's playing defense all the time is just not the play. And you have to, at some point, get a little aggressive, be a little bit more diligent and be like, hey, I need to take these steps. Cause it's like, there's actionable steps. We have action items with how we can actually improve our blood markers, whether it's A1C or insulin levels, et cetera. Like there's plenty of good ways to do that. And I think that kind of going back to what you were mentioning about like leveling up, whether it's in corporate wellness or just being kind of like, I call myself like a foot soldier. It's like, I want to be kind of like that person where it's like, hey, like go to Chris cause he can do whatever, in this space that's close to people in the heights. So just, many different ways we can go about it.
And for us, like kind of like this is more speaking to maybe some people who are interested in becoming coaches or like want to knock on our door for opportunities. Like, the way we structured it is kind of create an environment where there's work-life balance. You're being paid competitively to where this can be a living. And, if we were just using boring markers, it's like you're able to afford a mortgage or rental payment in the neighborhood in which you live, right? A bank would approve you for like, based on your income, you can have a mortgage or you could live here, right? Like that's kind of like the types of income. And again, are we like CEO level status? No, of course not. But like, at least you're making enough money where it's respectable, it's sustainable. You can have a wonderful life impacting lives and doing great things, right? It's kind of like what we wanted to really be able to create. And so I think the industry is moving to a more elevated place in terms of coaching. I think what we have at District H, the team that we've built, is super special right now because everyone's literally a professional. And I hope our members are feeling you guys like, this is awesome, right? Because maybe Chris and Lexi and Christy and Bryce and everyone is just, they're paying more attention and they're more present. And I'm getting a lot more value out of this relationship. This all started with like, how do I add more value to my clients' lives? Well, how would I put professionals in front of them? And we just see what happens. And I think it's been good. Like, I don't know, anything else you want to do before we wrap it up?
No, I think it's, there's always going to like, coaches need like a financial, like kind of anchor. And I think that that's kind of one of the things that like, I was like, oh, this is what I've been hearing about. Like I can make this like a full-time career when I saw the job application with District H. And that was like such an appealing offer. And I was like, hey, worst thing that happens is I move halfway across the country and decide I don't want to do this, but it's been great. So
yeah, that's awesome. And and I would say like the last thing I would say to you guys is like, just know that like I'm constantly going to be having people like, yes, it's wonderful having Chris around where I'm like, the only thing that we need to develop is like my way of pronouncing his last name. Like, shit, which is fantastic, by the way. But no, like understand guys, I'm constantly going to be bringing people in and maybe they're not at Chris's level or Christy's level, but know that there's a process in place to get these people to that level over time. Cause it just takes reps. And I'm not going to lie, like, my entire staff has to commute an hour to get here every day because there's not a lot of you guys out there. So like, that's just the world we live in. So like, in the perfect world, I could just stamp out all these Chris's all day, every day. Right. That'd be awesome.
That'd be great.
Anyway, guys, that's it for this episode. We'll see you next time. All right. Take care.